Okay, so in this video, we're going to cover implied odds, and this is going to be different from the other videos where I'm not going to play while I'm talking on this one. It's a bit more complicated subject where I had to actually just write this out. So I'm going to read it from what I typed out because it's a little too complex to play hands at the same time while trying to explain this, because implied odds are a tough subject to really understand. Well, it's not really a tough subject to understand, but it's a subject that I think people misinterpret. So, the definition of implied odds is the amount of chips a player needs to win in the future to make a profitable call. So, when your opponent lays odds to you, makes a bet, and you don't have the proper odds to make the call, so you rely on implied odds to make the call. You're saying you will get his stack if you make your hand. Okay, so an example is you pick up the flush draw on the turn. Villain makes a pot size bet. You have an 18% chance of making your flush, but a pot size bet requires 50% to be a profitable call. Okay, if you both have quite a bit of stack size left after the call and you believe you can get his stack if you make the call, that's implied odds. That you're making an unprofitable pot odds call, but you're using implied odds to believe that you're going to grab his stack if you get your card. Now, another example of implied odds is if you have pocket fives pre-flop and you raise first in, villain 3 bets to 10 big blinds. Stacks are 100 big blinds effective. So you call with the implied odds that if you flop a set, you will get his stack. Okay, there are some problems here. There's the pre-flop implied odds. It's the 10, 20, 30 rule, where you need stack sizes to be the correct multiplier of the bet size to make a profitable call pre-flop. The 10x is for set mining, 20x is for suited connectors, the 30x is for suited one gappers. So, for example, you are 100 big blinds effective stacks with the villain. You raise first in 3 big blinds. Villain 3 bets to 10 big blinds, and it folds around to you. You can call this bet to set mine, but here's some problems. This assumes you will get the villain stack if you flop a set. If he has a big pocket pair, then probably so. But players 3-bet a variety of hands. Let's say he 3-bets with king queen suited, and the flop is ace 6-5, one or none of your suit, and of his suit, and you have pocket fives. You'll win a decent pot, but not always a stack. And sometimes you'll lose a stack to a better set, or to a flush, or a straight. Same example, but villain 3-bets to 14 big blinds in the small blind. You are priced out to make the call because it's more than 10x. 14 times 10 is 140. You need 140 big blinds effective to make that a profitable call. Or if villain isn't topping off and only has 80 big blinds left and 3 bets to 10 big blinds, this would be an unprofitable call. So, hypothetical. Everybody has 100 big blinds at the table. If you raise first in pre-flop 3 big blinds and someone 3 bets to 10 big blinds, it's a break-even call when you set mine and a losing call with a suited connector or suited one gapper. The exception to this is if you have Broadway cards and believe you can win with top pair. Any of these situations with lower cards is really what we're talking about. Pocket, or with 10s on down. Pocket 10s on down, suited connectors 10-9 on down, and one gappers 10-8 and lower, where you're not relying on making top pair for the winning hand, where if you have Broadway cards, that if you hit your queen jack, you have queen jack of diamonds. If you hit your queen, and that's top pair by the time you get to showdown, you could still win with that. So with any of these hands, calling a 3-bet is unprofitable. If you raise first in 3 big blind and villain 3-bets to 10 big blinds and you have a suited connector or 1-gapper, 10 on down, you are making an unprofitable call in the long run. But keep in mind, effective stack sizes are important. Let's say you and villain have both doubled up to 200 big blinds. You raise first in 3 big blinds and he 3-bets to 8 big blinds. You can profitably set mine or call with a suited connector. Here's where understanding SPR, stack to pot ratio, is critical to pre-flop play. What the effective stack sizes are really matters. So calling bets with a draw post-flop is where a lot of players use implied odds to make a call as well. So in the example earlier, we used a flush draw where we called a pot-sized bet, claiming implied odds justifies it. Players today are less likely to put their stack in on the river when the flush card hits. So if you keep overpaying for the river card and don't get a stack when it hits, then you're losing money over time. If you think about it, it's really not profitable to call most bets post-flop with draws. Folding or raising in most spots would be the right play. When you raise, you are now laying them odds. It's putting it back on them. So if you're not familiar with the 2x4 rule, I'm going to cover that here. So with 1 card to go, multiply your outs by 2. Example, if you're on the flush draw, you have 9 outs. So 9 times 2 is 18. You have an 18% chance of making your hand on the next card. If you have 2 cards to go, multiply the 9 outs by 4, which is 36% chance of making your hand. But we need some clarification on that. The 4x number is only if you get it all in on the flop with both the turn and river to go. Some players confuse this with they call to see the turn, then call to see the river, thinking it's the same. It's not. They say they have 36% chance to hit. No, it's 18% on the turn and another 18% on the river. It's not the same because it's 2 different bets. And a way to look at this is, okay, this isn't what can really happen, but think about it this way when you call a bet. So let's say your friend is playing the hand and he sees the flop, makes a call with the flush draw. He has 18% chance of making his flush on the turn. Okay, the flush doesn't get there. Now he gets up and asks you to finish out his hand for him, which I know you can't do this actually, but this was just for an example. So now you don't know any of the previous action whatsoever, but you sit down, you look down at the cards, and you have a flush draw with just the river to go. You have an 18% chance of making that flush draw. You need to act accordingly. So when you're playing in a hand, every time that there's action, it's independent of the previous action in a way. The way to look at it from a betting point of view is all that money's already in the pot. So you now are being laid odds. So if they bet 1/3 pot, you're being laid 25% odds and you have 18%. So you don't know what your friend did prior to you. You're sitting down blind. So I don't know if that helps clarify that each street and each bet is independent of the other one as far as odds go. Understand the odds you are being laid. If the villain bets 1/3 pot, then you are being laid 25%. So to figure this out, put the bet as a fraction, 1/3. Add the top number to the bottom number, then do the math. 1/1 plus 3 is 1/4, which is 1 divided by 4, which is 25%. So a 3/4 pot bet would be 3 over 4. Add the top number to the bottom number and do the math. It's 3 divided by 7, which is 42%. Round up is 43. If the villain makes a 3/4 pot bet and you only have an 18% chance of making your flush, then you are short by 24, which makes this an unprofitable call. But players yell implied odds to justify the call. A different example, you both have a flush draw. You have both a flush draw and an open-ended straight draw, 17 outs. 17 times 2 is 34. You can profitably call up to a half pot bet or go over the top and put it back on them. If they shove, it would be 17 times 4, which is 68%, which means you have a ton of equity to make the call. So you have ace 6 of hearts. Flop is jack 8-5 with 2 hearts. If you believe that if you catch the ace or the heart, then you have 3 outs, 3 ace outs, and 9 flush outs for a total of 12. 12 times 2 is 24, 24% chance of making your hand. If the villain bets 33% pot or less, then it's a profitable call. Otherwise, it is not. This is where implied odds come in to make the call, thinking that you will get the rest of his stack if you make an unprofitable call. But realistically, will you? Implied odds are grossly overused, in my opinion. No one wants to fold their draws post-flop because we use confirmation bias to justify the call. Hey, I won a stack hitting my flush before, it'll happen again. So that's my view on implied odds. I think they're, in this day and age, they're really overused because players aren't paying off the way maybe they did back in the 2000s. And once that flush completing card hits, it's hard to get paid. So every time that you overpay for these draws, you're losing money in the long run. And you can still catch it. You got reverse implied odds as well. You catch your flush and you lose a stack. So calling draws post-flop really is not that profitable in the long run. You're losing money oftentimes because if you're overpaying. So really, oftentimes, you're better off folding or raising. Put it back on them. Because anytime you raise, the odds you were laid no longer matter. Now you're laying them the odds. They have to make a decision. I know that sounds weird, counterintuitive, but it's true. So that's my discussion on implied odds. If you want to disagree, throw it down in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe and like. And if I'm way off base somewhere, put that in the comment section and explain why. And then I can either go back and fix it if I got this screwed up somehow, or make another video, go from there.